Good morning, John Adamson with Seeking Light. I know a couple days ago or so I said I was going to kind of take a break, but I'm out this morning and chilling with a coffee. Figured I'd just talk about the invasion of Ukraine. So, a little bit of personal history related to Ukraine. So, my wife and I have adopted 6 children from Ukraine. One in 2008. I'm trying to make sure I've got the right timeline. Two in 2009. And then a sibling group now 3 years ago brought home from Ukraine. So Ukraine is dear to us. We've got friends over there, especially in the Kiev area, but we also know some people in other areas. So we've visited Kiev, which is the largest city. There, Kiev. It will probably be called Kiev again. Kiev, beautiful city. A lot of neat things going on there. I mean, it's like any city. But we felt, I think, largely safe there. And a lot of outdoor markets. We got a chance to get to know some of the people that ran the outdoor markets. You want to talk about polyglots, people who could speak lots of languages. All you need to go do is go to the Kiev markets. A lot of those people, because they're selling to tourists all day long, they were conversant in multiple languages. So and some really nice ones, and a lot of them spoke English very well. So Kiev, we spent a lot of time there. Odessa, which is their second largest city, which is on the I just blanked on the name of the sea. It'll come to me later. Anyway, so Odessa, second largest city. Didn't like Odessa as much. Probably because my time staying there wasn't very pleasant. And then Balta, which is one of the small cities that we adopted from. I mean, it's more like a town with the center. And then also a small city in the south. Gosh, I was thinking of this earlier, and it came to my mind readily. But the one we first adopted from, and one of our children this last time was there. It'll come to me. Anyway, and we traveled through Kiev, or I should say, through Ukraine. So Ukraine is at war right now, and as of last reports, even explosions in Kiev itself. Russian military has bombed the military airport there, but not apparently the regular airport, the Kiev Airport International, which is a beautiful airport. It would be a bummer if they destroyed that. Destroying anything, period. And what's concerning to me, besides the people, which is my first concern, is their safety. Is there's so many beautiful landmarks in Kiev. I just hate to think of any of them destroyed. Ismail, that was the other city that we visited. I should have remembered that one because we spent more time there, actually. Um, Beautiful small city in the southern aspect of Ukraine. So anyway, we have contact with people that are in Ukraine right now. And so far, they've described that they feel okay. Explosions, scariness, but doing okay. And there are a lot of live feeds going on from Ukraine, people walking the streets. One guy I was watching, he was just walking around some areas that I recognized. I don't remember exactly where they were, but it was calm, it was quiet. That's might change, of course. And also Freedom Square, which is the central square of Kiev. We were by there quite a bit, and spent a lot of time shopping and visiting different places around there. Beautiful area, lots to do. It's scary to think that might be the site of more war, um, or occupation by the Russians. So anyway, is Ukraine lost? Perhaps not this time around. So Russia's going to annex the two eastern parts. And if you know anything about Ukraine, the eastern part closer to Russia, they tend to speak Russian. They're they view themselves, in part at least, as Russians. Whereas you go towards the west of Ukraine, you start to get more into the Europeanized parts of Ukraine, which includes Kiev, which is kind of smack dab in the center. And then you've got the very western portion, which is very European. And so I think just the very eastern part, from what I'm seeing from reports and what I know of this conflict, that just the eastern portions of Ukraine will be taken over at this time. But you remember a few days ago that Joe Biden, I guess it's been over a week, he was saying that Russia would use what's called a false flag incentive to go into Ukraine, saying that, oh, they had been attacked across the border, Ukrainians were shelling them, Ukrainians had fired the first shot. That would be the first flag. Well, if you've been paying attention to other areas of the world and world news, I believe that the Ukrainian incursion is also being used as a false flag by another country. A country that has vast control over this particular platform and other media platforms in the world. A country who has demonstrated increasing aggression towards those that they view as being inferior to them and also being illegitimate countries. And I'm talking about China and Taiwan. So if you've watched any news about China and Taiwan recently, China has been stepping up incursions into Taiwanese air space. I was just watching a report where periodically they would get like a Chinese fighter jet going into Taiwanese airspace. But last month they had 39 fighter jets, that went into Taiwanese airspace. We're also seeing increasing amounts of ships being positioned close to to Taiwan and to Japan. And one analyst was pointing out that if they take over Taiwan, if China does in fact go into Taiwan, take it over, it'll be a quick hop, skip, and a jump to Japan. And if you've read or learned anything about, let's say, World War II, you would know that there's deep animosity between Japanese and Chinese. In fact, the Western world really doesn't understand just how much racism there is in Oriental countries. So China hates Japan, and Japan looks down upon Korea. Very racist mindset. Somebody who had lived in Japan for a while said he was told that Koreans, for example, this is going to just the inherent racism of the area. Koreans were descended from a dog that managed to swim across from Japan to Korea. And that was a story that was shared with him in Japan. He was a pastor there for a while. So there's a deep-seated racism that goes amongst these countries. But going back to China and Taiwan, China looks at Taiwan as just being theirs. Same thing with Russia looking at Ukraine as being theirs. It's just a part of occupied Russia that they need to take back. Taiwan, it's occupied China. They just need to take it back. Like Israel. Not even looked at by their Middle Eastern surrounding countries as being a recognized state, just being occupied Palestinian land. So they want to take it back. So we talk about false flags. Well, a false flag, I shouldn't say it's not a false flag, but it's an opportunity that is presented as smokescreen for China to start getting aggressive with Taiwan and possibly ultimately Japan. One thing you may have learned too is that Taiwan is one of the greatest producers of semiconductors in the world and batteries. And just as we're ramping up increasingly, for instance, the potential use of battery-powered cars, China, if they take over Taiwan and maybe even ultimately Japan, has the ability to control that whole market potentially, or a vast sum of that market. And so at a time where we've also, and this is going back to Russia, where Biden has eliminated the energy independence that Trump got for us, where he's eliminated that now, we are now beholden in part to Russia. And we're going to see our prices go up. Even now, gas is going up. And I was watching a news report where they're predicting that gas soon may hit $4 a gallon in the cheaper areas. We're in one of the cheaper areas here, and possibly as high as $6 a gallon in California. I don't know why people live in that state. I mean, they are having a mass exodus, but unfortunately they're bringing their ideas to other states. Texas may turn to the next California, I don't know. So anyway, will Ukraine ultimately be lost? I think ultimately it will be. Is this guy going to try to block me in? This trucker just pulled next to me, and I'm in a spot where, oh no, I think he's leaving. But anyway, will Ukraine ultimately be taken over by Russia? Probably. Putin's not going to give up. And no matter how much we try to flex our muscles in the area, Putin's not going to listen to us. Because he knows we're a bunch. Well, I'm not for doing a U.S. invasion into Ukraine to take it back over at all. But he knows we're a bunch of wimps over here. We're more concerned about diversity, inclusion, and equity in our military than actually having a military force. If you haven't seen it, there are some videos out there about this on YouTube that compare our U.S. Armed Forces advertisement to the advertisement they get in Russia and China. And after watching those advertisements, ask yourself, who would I feel more excited about joining the military, irregardless of what you think of those countries? Which ones, which of those advertisements make you feel like you're most proud part of a strong fighting force, etc., and like you have a chance against the other world powers? So anyway, China, Russia versus America. What are our armed force advertisements like? By the way, I'm just riffing. So if you're on, I'm talking partly about Russia's incursion to Ukraine, but as other things come to my mind, and as I said earlier in this, my wife and I have strong ties to Ukraine. We adopted 6 children. My wife spent at least a half year in Ukraine between all of those adoptions. She was there longer than I was. There was a stint of about a couple months where she was not home, and I was holding down the fort here with a couple of my older kids while she was in Ukraine. So we have friends there. We love the country. It has a unique culture compared to Russia. Of course, there's Slavic, and most Ukrainians speak Russian and Ukrainian, or a combination. I forget what they call it, a combo language, but they'll mix and match their words. And although I was told there's only about 40% overlap between the actual languages, but very similar. They use Cyrillic letters. Anyway, it's a fascinating culture. We loved a lot of our time there, although it can be challenging when you're in adoption to really enjoy it. And anyway, so what are we going to see? Here's my prediction. All right, so I'm going to give my final conclusion of my conspiracy theory. So Russia's only going to take the eastern portions that they've been talking about in the news and annex those. Okay. China is then going to go ahead in the midst of this smokescreen, attack Taiwan. Will they go after Japan? We're not going to let Japan fall, but will Taiwan fall? This is my prediction. Taiwan will fall, Japan will not, because we're not going to let Japan go. Japan is too valuable to the United States, but we're going to lose a lot of the availability of semiconductors, and China is going to use that as leverage against us for putting any sanctions on them. So, our words, calling them civil rights abusers and things like that, going to fall on deaf ears. They won't care. So that's my prediction. And then maybe in the midst of that, Ukraine quietly falls, the rest of it falls to Russia. So we have Russia annexing eastern Ukraine, China going into Taiwan, and in the midst of that, dealing with that and fending them off from Japan, Ukraine's the rest of it's taken over by Russia. That's my conspiracy theory tinfoil hat prediction, but I might be totally wrong. Anyway, I'm just riffing. Thanks for joining me during my riff. I'm gonna get going. Take care and God bless.